The Council's verdict. Ambassador Richard Hayes stood before the crystalline doors of the Galactic Assembly Hall, taking one final breath before they slid open. The chamber beyond was a marvel of architectural achievement, a spherical room where gravity adjusted based on position, allowing representatives from hundreds of worlds to sit comfortably regardless of their physiology. Floating platforms held delegates from aquatic worlds. Heated stone pedestals accommodated silicon-based life forms. And at the center, on a raised dais that rotated slowly, sat the 12 elders who had guided galactic civilization for over 10,000 years. Richard walked forward, his boots making soft sounds on the energy bridge that formed beneath his feet. He carried a single data crystal. Compressed within it were 6 decades of human contribution to galactic society. 60 years of proving that Earth deserved recognition as a full member of the Assembly rather than remaining a probationary observer species. The chamber held representatives from 347 species today. Richard could feel their eyes on him, some curious, many indifferent, a few openly hostile. He reached the center platform and turned slowly, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible before focusing on the 12 elders. Elder Kavros spoke first, his voice resonating through the chamber without need for amplification. The Kavrosian was ancient even by the standards of elder species, his crystalline body glowing with soft blue light. Ambassador Hayes of Earth. You have requested this session to present humanity's petition for full Assembly membership. The floor is yours. Richard activated the data crystal. Holographic displays materialized around him, showing images and statistics. Honored elders, esteemed delegates. Humanity comes before you today not to beg for acceptance, but to demonstrate our worthiness as partners in galactic civilization. The first images showed gleaming space stations orbiting distant worlds. In the past 6 decades, human engineers have constructed or improved infrastructure for 42 member species. We have increased efficiency in trade routes by 37% and reduced transit accidents by half. A tall, insectoid delegate named Kyrax clicked his mandibles dismissively. Infrastructure work is labor, not innovation. Any species with basic construction skills could accomplish this given enough time. Richard nodded, expecting this response. The images changed to show medical facilities. Human medical researchers have developed treatments for 17 previously incurable diseases affecting 9 different species. Our xenobiology teams have saved approximately 14 million lives across the galaxy. Elder Morpheus, whose form shifted between solid and gaseous states, spoke in a voice like wind through canyons. Medical assistance is commendable but hardly unique. The Valerian hegemony developed similar treatments 3 centuries ago. Your contributions, while appreciated, demonstrate competence rather than exceptionalism. The images shifted again, showing diplomatic meetings and peace treaties. Last year, human negotiators helped resolve the Centauri-Drexel conflict, ending a war that had claimed billions of lives over 3 centuries. We achieved this through patient diplomacy and creative compromise. General Thrak, a massive reptilian being covered in armored scales, let out a sound that might have been laughter. You stopped 2 primitive species from destroying each other. Any mature civilization could have done the same. The fact that it took humans to intervene merely highlights how backward both the Centauri and Drexel truly are. Richard felt the familiar frustration building but kept his expression neutral. For 60 years, humanity had heard the same responses. Every achievement was dismissed as adequate but not exceptional. Every contribution was acknowledged but minimized. He changed the display one final time, showing Earth itself, the blue-green jewel that was humanity's home. We have shared our art, our music, our literature with the galaxy. We have contributed our perspectives and ideas to countless projects. We have proven ourselves as reliable partners and innovative thinkers. Elder Sethes, whose body resembled flowing liquid metal, spoke with a voice like bells chiming. Ambassador Hayes, humanity is young. Your species achieved space travel only 400 years ago. Most Assembly members have been exploring the stars for millennia. You lack the wisdom that comes with age, the temperance that comes with experience. We lack prejudice, Richard said quietly, his voice still carrying through the chamber. We lack the arrogance of assuming age equals superiority. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates made sounds of surprise or disapproval. Elder Kavros's glow intensified slightly. Ambassador, you forget yourself. We are not prejudiced. We are cautious. Humanity has a documented history of internal conflict, warfare over trivial differences, destruction of your own environment. These are not the actions of a species ready for full membership. Richard had heard this argument before as well. The fact that humanity's conflicts were centuries in the past never seemed to matter. The fact that every species in the assembly had similar histories in their youth was conveniently ignored. Every species makes mistakes, Richard said. The question is whether we learn from them. Humanity has demonstrated our ability to grow, to change, to contribute meaningfully to galactic civilization. Elder Vex, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic field, pulsed with amber light. The assembly will now deliberate and vote. Ambassador Hayes, please wait in the observation chamber. Richard bowed respectfully and turned to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he heard the whispers and conversations beginning behind him. He knew what they were saying. He had heard it all before. The observation chamber was a small room adjacent to the main hall, with a one-way transparent wall allowing him to watch the proceedings. Richard stood there for 3 hours while the assembly debated humanity's fate. He watched delegates argue, saw groups form and dissolve, noticed the patterns of alliance and opposition that had become familiar over the years. Finally, Elder Kavros called for order. The assembly has completed its deliberation. We will now vote on whether to grant full membership status to the human species of Earth. The voting display activated, a massive holographic sphere where each delegate's decision would appear as a point of light. Green for approval. Red for rejection. White for abstention. Richard watched as the lights began to appear. Red. Red. More red. A few white lights scattered throughout. Then, near the bottom of the sphere where the smallest and youngest species sat, 2 green lights appeared. The voting continued for several minutes. When it finished, the results were clear and brutal. The vote is complete, Elder Kavros announced. 287 votes against. 8 abstentions. 2 votes in favor. The petition for full membership is denied. Richard stood perfectly still, his face calm despite the disappointment burning in his chest. 60 years. 60 years of work, and this was the result. Ambassador Hayes, Elder Sethi said, his tone almost apologetic. Perhaps in another century when humanity has matured further, you may reapply. We do not reject you out of malice, but out of concern for the stability of galactic civilization. Richard walked back into the main chamber. Every eye watched him as he approached the center platform. He stood there for a long moment, looking at the faces of beings who had just declared humanity unworthy. Thank you, honored elders, he said, his voice steady and clear. You have made your position abundantly clear. Earth will respond appropriately. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small communication device. It was sleek, black, and made of materials that several delegates recognized as far more advanced than standard human technology. Richard pressed a single button and spoke 4 words. Midnight Protocol. Execute now. The device emitted a single pulse of light, then went dark. Richard pocketed it and bowed once more to the assembly. I wish you all the very best in your future endeavors. You will need it. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Across the galaxy, in 374 different locations, human personnel received the same signal simultaneously. On medical stations and research facilities, in engineering departments and agricultural centers, on trade stations and diplomatic outposts, humans stopped what they were doing and checked their encrypted communicators. The message was simple: Midnight Protocol active. Withdraw immediately. Dr. Jennifer Morrison was working in the Covrosian Medical Research Center when her communicator vibrated. She read the message, felt a mixture of relief and sadness, and immediately began packing her equipment. Dr. Morrison? Her assistant, a young Covrosian named Telrix, watched with confusion. What are you doing? I'm leaving, Telrix, Jennifer said, carefully storing her research notes in a secure container. All humans are leaving. Leaving? But why? Did something happen? Jennifer smiled sadly. The assembly voted today. They decided humanity isn't worthy of full membership. So we're taking our leave. But your research, your work on the crystalline degenerative disease, you're so close to a cure. I've uploaded all the basic data to your systems, Jennifer said. You should be able to continue from here. She didn't mention that the basic data was actually simplified to a level that Covrosian medical science could understand. The real breakthrough, the quantum-level genetic manipulation that made the cure possible, was far beyond anything they had access to. Without her guidance, the research would likely stall within weeks. Across the station, similar scenes were playing out. Human technicians were shutting down systems, human researchers were packing equipment, human advisors were submitting their resignations. All of it done calmly, professionally, without anger or argument. On the Valerian trade station Nexus 7, Captain Michael Torres was overseeing the shutdown of the mining operation he had managed for 12 years. The Valorians had thought their asteroid field was depleted until human scanners found rich deposits hidden within the dense rock formations. Captain Torres, Station Administrator Vexel protested. You cannot simply abandon the operation. We have contracts. Michael handed him a data pad. Section 47, subsection 12. All human contracts include a clause allowing immediate termination if humanity is denied equal status in the Assembly. The Assembly voted today. The clause is now active. But the minerals we extract feed our colonies. Our economy depends on this operation. Then you should have supported our membership application, Michael said quietly. The extraction equipment will remain, but the operating systems are locked. Without the access codes, it's just expensive metal. He walked toward the docking bay where his ship waited, leaving Vexel staring at the inert machinery. On planets and stations throughout the galaxy, similar realizations were beginning to dawn. The humans weren't arguing or negotiating. They were simply leaving, taking with them the knowledge and expertise that had become integrated into countless systems. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, Elder Kavros was receiving the first reports. What do you mean the medical center is shutting down? His aide, a Kavrosian official named Sarix, looked panicked. All the human medical staff have resigned simultaneously. They're removing their equipment and data. Dr. Morrison said they're responding to the Assembly's decision. This is an overreaction, Kavros said, his glow flickering with irritation. They cannot simply abandon their responsibilities. They claim they're within their legal rights. All their contracts contain termination clauses related to Assembly membership status. Before Kavros could respond, another aide rushed in. Elder, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Humans are withdrawing from their positions everywhere. Trade stations, research facilities, diplomatic posts, everywhere. General Thrak appeared on a communication screen. Elder Kavros, my military installations are reporting system failures. The humans who maintained our tactical networks have resigned. Without them, our command and control capabilities are severely compromised. Elder Morpheus materialized nearby. The atmospheric processors on the Kelvin terraforming project have shut down. The human engineers have left. Without them, the project cannot continue. Elder Sethes' voice came through the communication system. We are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the galaxy. Unknown vessels are taking positions near major trade routes and planetary systems. Unknown vessels? Kavros asked. From which species? That's the problem, Elder. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. But our analysts believe they may be human vessels using systems we've never seen before. Kavros felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Give me Ambassador Hayes. Immediately. We've tried, Elder. Earth is not accepting communications from Assembly species. All our signals are being blocked. In the observation chamber of the Assembly Hall, delegates were beginning to panic. Representatives were receiving reports from their home worlds about cascading failures. Navigation systems malfunctioning. Medical equipment displaying error messages. Communication networks going dark. Agricultural systems producing reduced yields. Kyrax, the insectoid delegate who had dismissed human infrastructure work, was speaking urgently into his communicator. What do you mean the trade route calculations are wrong? The humans said they were just optimizing efficiency. His aide's voice crackled with static. Sir, it appears the humans rebuilt our entire navigation system using their own technology. Without their oversight, our ships cannot calculate safe jump coordinates. 3 vessels are already lost. Throughout the chamber, similar conversations were happening. Species that had taken human contributions for granted were discovering that those contributions ran far deeper than anyone had realized. Elder Vex pulsed with agitated energy. This cannot be coincidence. The humans planned this. Planned what? Kavros demanded. To leave? They had every right to be upset by our decision. No, Vex said. They planned to make themselves essential, then withdraw simultaneously when we rejected them. This was a strategy. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. If the humans had planned this, if they had been deliberately making themselves indispensable while appearing to be humble workers and researchers, then what else had they been hiding? On the main display, new reports were appearing. More human ships with unknown energy signatures. More system failures across the galaxy. More species discovering that they depended on human expertise far more than they had realized. Elder Kavros stared at the data, his crystalline body dim with concern. What have we done? the truth revealed. The Galactic Assembly Hall buzzed with controlled chaos 3 days after humanity's withdrawal. Elder Kavros had called an emergency session, and every delegate had attended. The reports coming in from across the galaxy painted an increasingly dire picture. Elder Morpheus materialized at his station, his gaseous form swirling with agitation. The situation continues to deteriorate. 73 species are reporting critical infrastructure failures. The Valerian economy has contracted by 40% in just 3 days. My military forces are operating at 35% effectiveness, General Thrak growled, his massive claws scraping against his platform. Our tactical networks are degraded. Our newest weapons systems display error messages we cannot read. Even our armor environmental controls are malfunctioning. Kyrax clicked his mandibles nervously. The Nexus 7 mining operation is completely offline. We have engineers examining the equipment, but they cannot understand how it functions. The humans called it simple extraction technology, but our best scientists describe it as impossibly advanced. Elder Sethi's liquid metal form rippled with concern. We are not alone in this confusion. I have been contacted by 47 different species, all reporting similar problems. Technologies they thought they understood are revealing themselves to be far more complex than believed. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Vexera, a reptilian being from the Drexel system. We observed human technology for 60 years. We saw their ships, their equipment, their capabilities. Nothing suggested they possessed advanced systems. Perhaps, said a new voice, cold and clear, you saw exactly what we wanted you to see. Every being in the chamber turned toward the entrance. Standing there was a human woman in a uniform none of them recognized. It was deep blue with silver accents, made from material that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Behind her, 2 human guards flanked the doorway, their armor sleek and clearly functional in ways that made the Assembly's security forces look primitive by comparison. I am Commander Victoria Cross of the Terran Collective Starship Resolute, the woman said, walking forward with absolute confidence. I have been sent to address this assembly and clarify certain misconceptions. Elder Kavros's glow intensified with anger. You have no authority to enter this chamber without invitation. This is a violation of diplomatic protocol. Victoria stopped at the center platform, the same spot where Richard Hayes had stood 3 days earlier. She smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several delegates uncomfortable. Diplomatic protocol applies to species seeking your approval, she said. Humanity is no longer seeking anything from you. We are here to explain your current situation and present you with options for the future. Explain our situation? General Thrak stood, his massive form intimidating. You abandoned your responsibilities and sabotaged our systems. That is what needs explaining. Victoria turned to face him directly. General, we did not sabotage anything. We simply stopped maintaining systems that were never yours to begin with. Every contract we signed clearly stated our right to withdraw services if humanity was denied equal status. You chose to ignore those clauses because you never believed we would exercise them. She activated a device on her wrist. The chamber's holographic systems engaged, but the resolution and clarity were far beyond what the Assembly's technology could produce. The images that appeared were so realistic they seemed solid enough to touch. Let me show you what humanity actually is, Victoria said. The first image showed a star map. The delegates recognized it as the known galaxy, with Assembly territory marked in familiar colors. But there was something new. Vast sections of space that had been marked as unexplored or sparsely populated were now highlighted in blue. 89 colonized star systems, Victoria stated. 643 inhabited worlds. A population of 121 billion humans. All of this established over the past 2 centuries while you believed we were limited to our home system and a handful of nearby colonies. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Kyrax's mandibles clattered. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such expansion. Your sensors detected exactly what our cloaking technology allowed them to detect, Victoria replied. The image changed to show human ships. These vessels bore no resemblance to the blocky, functional craft that had been seen in assembly space. These were sleek, powerful, with design aesthetics that suggested capabilities far beyond anything the delegates recognized. This is the UESS Resolute, Victoria said, gesturing to the largest ship displayed. It is powered by a controlled quantum singularity and can travel from Earth to this location in 4 hours. Your fastest vessels require 3 days for the same journey. Elder Vex pulsed with amber light. If you possess such technology, why hide it? Why pretend to be a developing species? Victoria's expression became serious. Because 60 years ago, when humanity first encountered galactic civilization, we had a choice. We could arrive as equals, demanding respect through demonstration of power. Or we could observe, learn, and discover what kind of people you really were. She gestured, and the images changed again, showing human personnel working in various facilities across the galaxy. Every human you encountered in your medical centers, your research facilities, your trade stations, was a trained observer. They were not learning from you. They were studying you. Studying us for what purpose? Elder Morpheus asked, his form shifting with agitation. To determine whether the galactic community deserved human partnership, Victoria answered. To see if you would judge species fairly based on their contributions and character, or if you would remain trapped in hierarchies based on age and accumulated power. The images shifted to show the improvements humans had made across the galaxy. Medical breakthroughs, infrastructure upgrades, diplomatic achievements. But now, additional information appeared alongside each image, revealing the true complexity of what had been accomplished. The crystalline degenerative disease that Dr. Morrison was researching? Victoria said. She solved it 18 months ago using quantum genetic manipulation. She spent the last year and a half teaching your researchers simplified versions because the actual science is approximately 2 centuries beyond your current understanding. Elder Sethi's form rippled. You deceived us. No, Victoria corrected. We gave you exactly what you asked for. You asked for medical assistance. We provided it. You never asked about our capabilities because you assumed you already knew. You never questioned how a supposedly primitive species could solve problems that had baffled your researchers for generations because it fit your narrative of humanity as useful but limited. She gestured again, and the images showed infrastructure projects. The navigation system improvements that Captain Torres implemented on Nexus 7? Those weren't optimizations of your existing technology. They were complete replacements using quantum processing and relativistic calculation engines. Your engineers cannot understand them because they're based on physics principles you haven't discovered yet. General Thrax's voice was dangerously quiet. You infiltrated our societies under false pretenses. We worked openly in your societies under exactly the pretenses you assigned to us, Victoria responded. You believed we were junior partners who needed guidance. You never questioned that assumption because it made you feel superior. Every time we solved a problem you couldn't, you told yourselves it was luck or persistence rather than superior capability. Counselor Vexera spoke up, her voice sharp. If this is true, then every interaction we had with humanity was a lie. Every interaction was a test, Victoria said. Would you treat us fairly despite believing us to be less advanced? Would you show respect to those you perceived as inferior? Would you judge our contributions honestly or dismiss them to maintain your sense of superiority? The chamber fell silent. Several delegates looked uncomfortable. None could deny what she was saying. Elder Cavros's glow dimmed. And we failed your test. Spectacularly, Victoria confirmed. For 60 years, humanity contributed meaningfully to galactic civilization. We saved lives, improved efficiency, resolved conflicts, and shared our culture. And for 60 years, you patted us on the head like clever children and told us we weren't ready to sit at the adult table. She walked slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with delegates. The Valerian hegemony, whose economy has contracted by 40% in 3 days, laughed when we presented our infrastructure work as evidence of our capabilities. General Thrak, whose military effectiveness has been reduced by 2/3, dismissed human diplomatic achievements as basic mediation. Kyrax, whose mining operations are now completely offline, called our engineering work simple labor. Each delegate she named seemed to shrink slightly under her gaze. The truth, Victoria continued, is that humanity surpassed every species in this chamber decades ago. Our technology, our science, our capabilities are generations ahead of what you consider cutting edge. We hid this not out of fear but out of hope. We hoped that given time, you would see past your prejudices and accept us as equals based on merit rather than power. Elder Morpheus spoke quietly. What do you want from us now? Victoria returned to the center platform. Humanity is announcing the formation of the Terran Collective. A new galactic organization based on principles of equality, mutual respect, and merit-based advancement. Any species may join as full members immediately, regardless of their age, their technology, or their history. The image display changed to show a document written in multiple languages. The Terran Compact. Equal representation for all member species in all decisions. Protection against aggression. fair trade practices based on mutual benefit, scientific cooperation with full knowledge sharing, no hierarchies based on age or accumulated power. You are creating a rival to the Assembly, Elder Kavros said. We are creating an alternative, Victoria corrected. Species may choose to remain with the Assembly, join the collective, or maintain neutrality. But understand this, the days of taking human assistance for granted are over. If you wish to purchase our services, you may do so as customers. If you wish to partner with us, you may apply for collective membership. But we will never again pretend to be less than we are simply to make you comfortable. General Thrax stood to his full height. And if we refuse? If we reject your collective and demand you restore our systems? Victoria met his gaze without flinching. Then you will manage your own affairs with your own technology. We will not prevent you from attempting to recreate what we built. But I should warn you that most of our simple improvements are actually applications of science you will not discover for another few centuries without assistance. This is extortion, Thrak growled. This is business, Victoria replied. For 60 years, you received the benefits of human innovation while treating us as subordinates. That arrangement is over. Now you may engage with us as equals or not at all. Counselor Vexra asked the question on many minds. How many species have joined your collective? Victoria smiled. 31 species sent representatives to Earth before I left. All have agreed to join as founding members. 31? Which species? The ones you dismissed as unimportant. The young races you considered too primitive to matter. The small civilizations whose votes you ignored. The species who experienced the same condescension from this assembly that humanity faced. They understand the value of being treated as equals. The implications rippled through the chamber. 31 species represented a significant portion of the galaxy's population and resources. If they unified under human leadership with access to human technology, they would quickly become a power bloc that rivaled or exceeded the Assembly. Elder Vex pulsed with agitated energy. You are dividing galactic civilization. You are creating conflict where none existed before. No, Victoria said firmly. We are offering an alternative to a system that perpetuates inequality. The conflict existed the moment you decided that age matters more than achievement, that power matters more than contribution, that some species deserve respect while others must earn it over centuries. She activated her wrist device again. I am transmitting the full text of the Terran Compact to all delegates. Study it. Discuss it with your governments. You have 30 days to decide your response. 30 days is insufficient, Elder Kavros protested. It is more than sufficient to decide whether you prefer equality or hierarchy, Victoria replied. In the meantime, human ships will maintain positions throughout the galaxy to ensure stability and protect collective member species from aggression. General Thrax's eyes narrowed. That sounds like a military occupation. It sounds like peacekeeping, Victoria corrected. We will not attack anyone who does not threaten collective members. But we will respond decisively to any aggression. And General, given the current state of your military capabilities versus ours, I strongly recommend you choose diplomacy over confrontation. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates wanted to reject the collective immediately out of pride. Others recognized their dependence on human technology and urged negotiation. A few saw opportunity in the new system and were already calculating advantages. Through it all, Victoria waited patiently. She had delivered humanity's message. The choice was now theirs. Finally, Elder Kavros raised a hand for silence. Commander Cross. What happened to Ambassador Hayes? Victoria's expression softened slightly. Richard Hayes is now first counselor of the Terran Collective. He will lead our new organization alongside representatives from the 31 founding member species. He sends his regards and wishes you wisdom in your deliberations. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and elders, one more thing. When you assumed humanity was primitive because we appeared emotional compared to your ancient logic, you missed something important. Emotions drive innovation. Passion fuels progress. The fire you dismissed as weakness is exactly what pushed us to surpass you. Victoria walked toward the exit. As she reached the doorway, she looked back one final time. You have 30 days. Choose wisely. She departed, leaving the Galactic Assembly to face an uncomfortable truth. For 10,000 years, they had been the galaxy's dominant civilization. In a single generation, a species they had dismissed as children had quietly surpassed them, studied them, and found them wanting. The old order was ending. A new one was being born. And for the first time in millennia, The elder species of the galaxy were no longer in control of their own destiny. 3 months later, the galaxy had transformed. The Galactic Assembly still existed, but 47 species had voted to leave and join the Terran Collective. Another 23 maintained diplomatic relations with both organizations, playing them against each other for advantage. The Valerian hegemony had eventually joined the Collective after their economy collapsed to the point where they had no choice. The Drexel Republic followed shortly after, bringing their former enemies the Centauri Union with them. The Cavrosians remained with the Assembly but had negotiated a technology-sharing agreement with the Collective. Elder Kavros himself had privately apologized to Richard Hayes, admitting that pride had blinded them to humanity's true nature. General Thrak and the Cronin Empire had attempted military action once, sending a fleet to intimidate a Collective member world. They found themselves surrounded by 50 human warships that had appeared from nowhere, their weapons powered but not armed. The Cronin fleet retreated without firing a shot. General Thrak was quietly removed from command shortly afterward. In Geneva on Earth, First Counselor Richard Hayes stood in his office, looking at the stars through the massive window. Victoria Cross entered, carrying a data pad. The morning reports, First Counselor. Richard took the pad and scanned it. The Collective now includes 63 species. Trade is up 42%. No military conflicts in 3 months. Medical cooperation has led to 4 new breakthrough treatments. The Assembly sent another request for negotiation, Victoria added. What are their terms? They want to discuss integration. Merging the Assembly into the Collective structure while allowing elder species to maintain advisory positions. Richard smiled. They're learning. Schedule a meeting. But make it clear that advisory positions are based on expertise, not age. If they cannot accept true equality, there's nothing to discuss. Understood. There's one more thing. The Kelvin terraforming project that was abandoned when we withdrew? The Collective finished it last week. 3 billion refugees now have a new home. Richard nodded, feeling satisfaction. This was what humanity had wanted from the beginning. Not domination. Not revenge. Simply the opportunity to contribute meaningfully and be respected for it. Commander Cross, what do you think Ambassador Hayes from 60 years ago would say if he could see what we've accomplished? Victoria considered the question. I think he would say that sometimes the best way to teach respect is to stop asking for it and start demanding it. Richard looked back at the stars, at the galaxy that humanity had quietly conquered not through force but through patience and superior capability. Schedule the meeting with the Assembly. Let's see if they've truly learned the lesson. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, Elder Kavros stood alone, his crystalline form dim with contemplation. Around him, half the seats were empty, their former occupants now part of the Terran Collective. The once mighty Assembly had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. He thought about Ambassador Hayes standing in this very spot 3 months ago, calmly accepting rejection. He remembered the certainty in his own voice when he had told Hayes that humanity needed another century to mature. The truth was painful but undeniable. Humanity had not needed to mature. The Assembly had needed to evolve. And they had failed the test. Now they would have to learn equality the hard way by experiencing what it felt like to be the ones considered inferior, the ones seeking acceptance, the ones trying to prove their worth. Elder Kavros's glow brightened slightly. Perhaps, he thought, there was wisdom in that lesson after all. The galaxy turned. Civilizations adapted. And humanity, no longer pretending to be less than they were, began building a future where respect was earned through merit rather than demanded through age. It was, Richard Hayes thought as he prepared for the Assembly meeting, exactly what they had always wanted. They had just needed to be willing to walk away from those who refused to see their worth. And sometimes walking away was the most powerful move of all. Retry.